Jason turned me off.
How are you doing on time?
You cut it all the way off, Jason?
77 minutes. You 77 minutes. Okay, yeah. Rest of them are okay. Another hour. They expected it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I'm ready now. I think everyone knows that the purpose of this particular agenda item is that the city must vote to approve advertising of a proposed millage rate. And let me just read my report and recommendation quickly. I think it's a good summary. The City of Clarkston has received the valuation reports from DeKalb County in preparation for the annual millage adoption process. In previous years, the City of Clarkston has had 6 to 8 weeks to prepare, discuss, meet, and adopt the millage rate. This year, the digest was received on Friday, May 25th. As a result of this very late transmittal, the time frame for the 2012 millage process has again been compressed, just like last year. DeKalb has requested that our final millage rate setting process be concluded and the results transmitted before July 5th, 2012. To accomplish this, the council will need to discuss and propose a millage rate for advertising purposes today, June 5th, at this council meeting. If a decision to establish the proposed millage rate is not made on today, we will have to request that DeKalb County extend the deadline. A schedule for millage adoption has been included later on in this document, and I'll go over the schedule for everyone's illustration purposes. Now, the current projected Clarkston net digest is $68,659,536. We received those numbers from the DeKalb County Tax Commissioner. Now, this amount may vary slightly as updates are sent to the city. What I mean by that is that we're currently going through the appeals process. People have an opportunity to appeal their assessments to the county. And sometimes as those assessments or those appeals are considered, that number does fluctuate. Now, in comparison, in 2011, the net tax digest for Clarkston was $76,204,429. And in 2010, it was $91,061,068. So you can see a trend. 91 million in 2010, 76 million in 2011, 68 million in 2012. That represents a 24.6% decline in the net digest value over a 2-year period. And just to back up, your net digest is the value of all the property that's taxed in your city, right? And multiplied by the millage rate, that equals the net proceeds from property tax. So that's why it's important to know that number goes down, then obviously simple math, it's a smaller numerator or denominator in this finance directive. All right. So the calculated rollback millage rate for 2012, the rate the city would need to adopt in order to receive the same tax amounts as last year, is 14.895. So that's the rollback rate. In other words, in order to receive the exact same amount of taxes from last year, as last year, the rollback rate would be 14.895 compared to what it is now, 14. The rollback millage rate is higher than the 2011 adopted millage rate of 14 mills as a result of revaluation of the tax digest. The current 2012 reevaluation is $7,544,893, or 6% less than the previous year. So in other words, our tax digest declined 17% last year, 6% this year. You can speculate why that is. Foreclosures, short sales. When you factor those in to everyone's net value and assessment, it's driving everything down. So, after reviewing the DeKalb County Tax Digest numbers for the City of Clarkston in the current 2012 budget, I recommend that the City Council consider advertising a millage rate of 17.95 mills for publishing and discussion purposes. Please keep in mind that the Council is not required to adopt the proposed millage rate advertised. I feel it would be prudent, however, to maintain some flexibility in setting the final millage rate in order to ensure that the City can fully fund its current 2012 budget. Now, there's something called the mathematical millage. And what that is, I won't bore you with the formula, but simply put, what that means is, what millage rate do you need to set at a minimum to fund your current budget? What millage rate do you need to set at a minimum to fund your current budget, not next year's budget, your current budget, the one we're halfway through? And that amount, that number is 17.25. 17.25. And so staff is recommending 17.95, but you advertise that. Council can, they can adopt a millage rate that's lower than that. They cannot adopt a millage rate that's higher than what you advertise. Okay? Now, in terms of the process, I'm going to go through the process real quick in terms of the timeline. We already know that today we need a vote to propose a millage rate to advertise and publish. After today's vote, tomorrow we will submit that information to the Champion newspaper, which is the county organ. We will advertise 3 public hearings. If you are increasing your millage rate, you need 3 public hearings. We'll advertise the first public hearing, and then we'll have a second advertisement that will advertise the second and third public hearing. So June 14th, that ad is published. June 21st, the second ad is published. The first public hearing will be Tuesday, June 26th. That's in conjunction with a work session at 7 p.m. That's your first public hearing. The second and third public hearings can be held on the same day. And so in this instance, we'll be holding those on the same day. That will be the following Tuesday, July 3rd, in conjunction with the regular meeting. The first public hearing would be at 10:30 a.m. The third public hearing would then be at 7 p.m. And then the council would need to take a vote at that time to adopt the final millage. Okay. I'll pause. I've got some additional information, but I'll pause right there to see if there are any questions from the council.
Any questions, council?
I do have some additional information. Okay. All right. So I apologize. Now let me just set this up. You know, we're looking at the budget, and and we're looking at history, and we understand that. I mean, I've only been here a year, but I looked at the history, and I see where in previous years you had a millage rate of 5, a millage rate of 4 for a long time, and then it jumped up to 11. And so now we're talking about 18 possibly, 17 and some change. That's a pretty big jump. But I'm looking at the expenditures, and I'm seeing there's not a huge increase in expenditures. And so I asked staff, we've got a very good city clerk, very good finance officer, to run some information. I'd like to share that information with you right now. I think it would be very, very telling. I apologize for this. You can't see this well, but let me just read what it says.
You make a suggestion, you go to view and you can adjust the screen.
The scale can make it down so you can scale.
View and
And
then.
then zoom, change 100% down to 70%.
Yeah, that's.
Okay.
No.
Down to 70. How about 75?
Right.
Okay.
Have to scroll back up a little.
Thank you.
Maybe the bar over.
Oh, okay. It's a team effort. There we go. All right. All
Yeah,
right.
it's a citizens.
So, and this is sort of going backwards, but let me start here. In the fiscal year 2000, City of Clarkston had a budgetary reserve account balance of almost $3 million. Right now, it's a little under $900,000. Okay. In 2000, it was almost $3 million. Let me tell you why that's important. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Can everybody see that? All right. So let me explain what you're looking at here. On the left, this is budgeted expense. In other words, this was what was adopted. On the right is audited. That's what really happened. Okay? Difference between budgeted expenditure and revenues and audited. Expenditures and revenue. Expenditures is your best guess of what you're going to spend. Your revenues, again, is your best guess of how much money you're going to bring in. You know, and you hope that you get enough trend information and you manage it correctly to where those numbers, you're pretty accurate with those. Audited is what you actually spent and what you actually brought in with taxes. All right, so look, in year 2000, the millage rate was 5.6. This is what was budgeted for revenue, 1.8 million, and budgeted expense, 1.8 million. Over in audited, did pretty good. You know, pretty close to those numbers. What you see here is that budget was underspent by $95,000. Don't know what happened with that money. Typically, there are a couple of things that can happen. That money can roll over into your budgetary reserve, or it could be appropriated for expenditure in the next fiscal year budget. I'm assuming that money went into the budgetary reserve. 2000 did pretty good as well. You see the revenues, you see the expenses, actually underspent the budget and actually gained a little bit more revenue. And so you have a fund balance of $151,000. In 2002, millage rate was 4.918. Again, pretty accurate in terms of revenues, expenses, balanced budget. Revenues were actually a little bit greater. Expenditures were a little bit greater, but thank God the revenues covered that. And so you came out $5,000 to the good. That's pretty good. In 2003, again, millage is very low, 4.798. The adopted revenue was 2.3 million. Expenditures were 2.3 million. But look here at the audited numbers. The revenue that was brought in was 1.9. Expenditures were less than what was anticipated. But you see this red here? That's a difference of $404,000. That was funded from the budgetary reserve. Okay, so you had a low millage rate, but you were funding that from the budgetary reserve. Now, typically, if you have a healthy budgetary reserve, it is okay to say we've got a healthy budgetary reserve, and to make up the slack, I'm going to take from my rainy day fund, and I'm going to show that as an appropriation for expenditure, and you can keep your millage rate down. But you do that purposely. You show that on your books, and everybody knows that going in. I think what happened